Hey my friends, today we're going to have a look at this. This is the Kershaw Fraxion. This is a Jens Anso designed budget knife made by Kershaw in China. It's new this year and it is a very light, fairly unique little Kershaw knife when you're thinking of your cheap China Kershaws. It's it's definitely one. It's definitely in there. It's got its own things going on. It's a peculiar one, so let's get into the review. So, basic specs, go first, get this out of the way. So it is a overall length of 6.7 inches, which in centimeters is 17.1 centimeters. The closed length you're dealing with is 4 inches, so the handle, I guess, is 4 inches. Right now, the blade length is 2.7 inches. So 7 centimeters, 2.7 inches. Its blade thickness is 2.5 millimeters, so fairly thin there. It's got a blade made of 8CR13 MOV. It is a hollow grind, quite a hollow grind. You can see it hollowing away from the primary flat here. It's got a top swedge, it's got a black wash finish, which is kind of like a black dye sort of substance that they use on knives. And the handle is made of G10 with a peel ply sheet of carbon fiber on the top to make it look like a cool German sports car, I guess. I'm not sure why people do that with carbon fiber. I guess some people like that sort of holographic checkery look, but interesting. So it's a flipper, obviously, with a very small little flipper tab here. It's got a pocket clip that is transferable, always tip up there. And the weight of this knife, it's a very light little knife. Let's get the scales out and weigh it, because it is very light. I was wondering which spec I'd missed. So, get my grotty kitchen scales out. So, tell you how many mils it is. In grams, 56 grams. That is a very light little knife indeed. Very, very light compared to even things like, we'll say, let's look at the Spyderco Dragonfly. That's probably like one of the lightest knives you can get. It still works really well, 35 grams. So, pretty much getting into that almost ultra-light knife category. So 56 grams, just a quick conversion for you on the phone. Should have done this before. 56 grams is 1.9 ounces. So very, very light, under 2 ounces for a pretty much full-sized EDC knife, if you're thinking blades from between 2.5 to 3 inches. Very, very well done on the weight. So how do they do that? They only have a single liner, which is really just the liner locking side of the liner. Yes, it is a liner lock knife. It's got pillar construction, again, a great weight saving feature, no backspace or whatnot. Kind of correctly pointed out in a couple of other reviews to be a little bit similar to like looking and almost in, I guess, idea to like the Benchmade 941. Obviously, different as well, but kind of similar in that it's trying to go for that whole kind of basic shape. Let's get a Benchmade 940 out. This one has the backspacer and stuff whatnot, but kind of going for that sort of like angular thin handle sort of thing. I might be completely off, but I sort of feel it as well. I can see it and feel it. So what's good about the knife? Well, the action is excellent. And the action frankly makes me think, why doesn't Kershaw just do dialed in detents and smooth washes? Why don't they, I think this might even be on bearings. Yeah, I think it is. Why don't they just do that? Why do they bother limiting their market by making all these cheaper knives speed safe? Because speed safe, and I've heard it sells really well, which I guess is people just like that whole gadget factor of it, but speed safe generally can't be sold in a lot of places in the world, whereas this knife can be, simply because it doesn't have a mechanized spring in it and it is just purely launching off the detent. It really does fire out excellently well, especially for a knife with a really small flipper. So often to get the great flipping action, you need a knife with a sort of a larger flipper so you can really sort of wrench down on and launch that blade out. But this one, purely on detent, and it is a really fierce detent. Like you have to, if you give it to someone who doesn't know how to use a flipper, they'll be like, they don't know how to push that little bit extra hard and make it fire out. So really, really well done action, and it is the best part of this knife. It really does fly out. In terms of the blade performs pretty well. It's got like a clip point style blade there. It's black wash, it's 8CR13 MOV. It's very much just generic low budget Kershaw or low budget CRKT. Kind of you feel it, like you feel like when you see these knives, they are kind of all a bit of a dime a dozen with the whole black watch. I think it must be a niche market or a niche in the market that likes the cheaper knives. Maybe people who buy lower cost knives like them to look a bit more military. I'm just spitballing here, but I think there might be something to it because there's got to be a reason why so many of them are kind of like this in terms of the color schemes and I guess back to the speed safe as well. People like that sort of more weapon factor in their cheaper knives. I don't know. Just sort of, just mulling it over in my head. I'm not sure. So many of them are so similar. When you compare all the budget Kershaws and CRKTs and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, digressing. HCR13 MOV will hold an okay edge. It'll, according to my testing, it's about as good as like, I don't know, AUS 8, maybe a little bit less. It's fine for, as long as you're not paying more than, say, I always like to have a number in my head, as long as you're not paying more than 60 Australian dollars or like maybe 40 American dollars for HCR, you're probably doing okay. This is a $50 knife in Australia, so it falls within its budget constraints for certain. Alrighty, so what do I like about the knife? The action. The blade does its job. It's got a good length of flat and then a good length of belly, so it is a good shaped blade and it is a good blade to use. It's no problems at all. Mine was given by a viewer, Subrock. Thank you very much, dude, for the knife. It is pretty much factory edge when I got it. It's lost its edge a little bit since I've been carrying it. I've carried it for about a week and a half now, pretty much non-stop. It's lost it, it's lost its edge. And I've only really cut up a box that I had some stuff delivered in, so like a big box that needs to be cut up for recycling. I've done a few just little odd jobs with it, and it's lost its edge, mainly towards the belly part. That's obviously the part that I use the most, and it's still pretty sharp back down here. But anyway, it's HCR 13, no surprises there. So I like the blade, I like the action, not too bad at all. The handle for me it's not terrible, it's just a little short, and it's short in the way that I'd rather either it be a little bit shorter still, so my finger just went straight past it, or it was a bit longer, so my pinky finger sat on it entirely. This is like trying on shoes though. Not every knife's going to fit every hand, but this is a little bit sharp here for my larger hand. When I do grip it, I feel a few corners. I feel this corner and this corner, so not the best for my hand size. But if you had medium-sized hands, it probably wouldn't bother you at all. So say if the back part of your hand went to there, you'd probably be no worries at all. Of course, mine doesn't. It's dangerous for me to hold a knife like that, but that's just me. The peel ply carbon fiber, I don't like. I don't like when companies do this. I didn't like it on the Rat number 1 with the carbon fiber, and I don't like it on this knife. Either have carbon fiber or don't. That's my opinion. It's a bit of it's almost a bit of a cheesy effect when you've got it with matte G10 behind it. It feels like an old holographic Pokemon card or sticker or something like that from when you were younger, like, ooh, shiny. The people will like this. I don't. It's not my cup of tea, and it has none of the benefits of carbon fiber in that, it's like a strong, super light material. This is already a super light knife, but it's the only other thing. It just seems like, why bother? I don't know. Not for me. Anyway, especially with this on the display side, this cutout here, all it does is catch your thumb and catch gunk, and because it is quite like it's a peel ply, so it's like an extra millimeter of height with no chamfering or anything like that. I don't like it, so that's just my taste. I guess mainly if you think the reflectivity of carbon fiber looks great, then more power to you. Not my cup of tea. The clip seems like it's too big for this knife. That's another thing. It's like this knife has a huge clip on it, and it's not deep carrier, which doesn't bother me too much because that is a really small part of the knife sticking out your pocket. But I think the clip is either too big or too loose or something. It feels like a bigger knife's clip. It feels like I don't know, it's just a Kershaw clip, and these go on all sorts of Kershaw and ZT knives, but I just feel like it's a bit big and clumsy for the knife. Sort of like just a thin little clip, like a wire clip or something, probably would have done the job just as well. That's the main thing I'm probably trying to get across. In terms of grip, the jimping's fine. It's there. It's every knife has to have jimping these days apparently. Those people were either going to just fly out of their hands, but I guess with a knife with a relatively small little forward choil here, it's probably necessary, and it's fine. It's not too rough or anything like that. It's actually quite moderate. So the handle's a bit of a miss for me. It's a bit just not the right shape for my hand, and the clip feels a bit big or a bit I don't know, just a bit clumsy or something on it. It feels like a clip from a bigger knife that isn't really for this knife. That's all. Not a biggie, really. The main thing with this knife, and I was alerted to it before, but it has happened to me on my own accords as well. When this knife doesn't come open properly, and you have to open it the rest of the way, you can just close it. Like the lock doesn't really engage properly. So say if you give it to someone, they don't know how to flip a knife, I mean, it's hard for me to not flip a knife because I'm a knife user, but say if they flip it, it goes all the way, and then they just open it, start using it, you can fold it. The lock collapses back on itself. You have to kind of jerk it back and lock it in. So it's just not machined perhaps perfectly. So like you can just collapse the lock over again, like it's sounds like horsies. So you have to really like jerk the lock back and then it's in. And when it is in, it's in properly and it's fine. So when you do fiercely flip it open, you're not going to really have any problems. But if you give it to someone who doesn't know what they're doing and they open it and they've only got it here and they think, oh yeah, that feels fine. They haven't checked to see the engagement, which as you can see is pretty poor right now. They'll chop, 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 and they could very well just be holding it, playing with it, and bang, closing the knife on their hand and just problems. Just that's the stuff, especially on knives that are obviously in the lower budget, perhaps aimed at the less knifey people, the less experienced knife users, the people just starting out. I think this is when knives need to be their safest, and just a little bit of a safety issue just there. I think when the knife's functioning correctly, it's fine, but when you add people, which always adds fucking idiocy, or just when you add people and add lack of skill, idiocy is probably too strong a word. Things like that are a little bit of a problem. I'm not sure if they all do this, but this one certainly does. You can break the lock if you don't. So that really does appear locked, doesn't it? Like it's flat along the spine and it's giving you a sound click. So just not ideal. So that is something definitely worth pointing out on the Kershaw Fraxion. But overall, I mean, I can't because of that really, and because I don't like how it feels in my hand, I wouldn't really recommend the knife. I'm sorry to say. It's light, and it's great to see light knives that flip really, really well without speed safe coming out, especially. That is a real thing. Take anything from this review, more knives need to have great flipping action with no speed safe. It is definitely possible. The Chinese are doing it in their rook and in their real steel knife, or rake or whatever it is, and their real steel knives now. It's good that Kershaw are starting to do it as well. You don't need speed safe. Speed safe is not a good feature. Speed safe makes the knife harder to close, and it just for the sake of having a snappy flip, it's not worth it in my opinion ever. Plus, it's annoying because I often can't get speed safe knives because my country has pretty lame import laws and knife laws in general. So it's just another thing. But yeah, if they can do it on this knife, they can do it on all of them. I just hope the next one they do it on doesn't do this when you think it is locked.